Um, I'm in a new coffee shop. Indeed.
You are in a new coffee
I'm in a
shop.
new
Boy.
and I'm drinking tea. Detox tea because I have a little niggly naggling.
Oh
I have a
no.
little I know. I'm on a bit of a streak. I got a little bit of minor signs last night from Mr. Aura,
Okay.
the Aura
Interesting.
himself.
And did you woke up feeling it this morning? You didn't
I
feel yes?
I woke up feeling it this morning, yesterday. How was yesterday? I was feeling it a little bit yesterday, to be honest. I saw it coming. Yeah, I saw it coming. I saw it coming. But it's okay. We're drinking some detox. We're gonna get some good sleep tonight, and we'll be back on the road. We'll be back on the road. We'll be
How
back on the road.
was it? Was there a crazy night, Friday night or anything? Or no, not really, just
There
kind
was there was an interesting stranger interaction on Saturday night, last night, which made it so I went to bed kind of late. But it was a very interesting conversation that I do want to talk to you about, to be fair.
of. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those where I'm just hanging out on my own, Paris, sunset time, on the Seine, on the river. It's a beautiful sunny day. Clouds are moving swiftly. Everything is beautiful. It's about 8:30 p.m. at night. I've got headphones on. I'm jamming, and all of a sudden I get a little tap on my shoulder, and it's this guy with a big camera, like one of those massive professional cameras, and he took a picture of me, and he showed it to me. And I was like, in French, I was like, c'est incroyable. Like, it's an amazing picture. And he was an Australian guy, so we got to talk in English pretty quickly. But then we had a 2 hour and a half conversation just on the bridge in Paris. And he's a professional photographer. And he's actually, it turns out, wait for it, he is the most famous photographer in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh.
And yeah, he's working on writing his ninth book. So he's an author. He has recently become a
What
father.
about photography? Or
This book, he's written some books about photography. This book, his ninth book, is about flowers. So for context, he built um reputation, if you were, or following in Australia because he's interviewed a lot of people about, in the streets. He talks to a lot of people in the streets. It's one of his things. And he's got a strong social media following in that regard. He takes pictures with people and shows them. So it's kind of his thing. He wasn't doing a bit here or anything. It wasn't like any hidden cameras. But that is his context. So he likes to talk to strangers essentially. And his book is about talking to strangers that are holding flowers and seeing what their story is, why they're holding the flower, what's the emotional attachment. And it's very interesting because when you think about it, if a person is holding some flowers, you don't really, the reason could be from the most beautiful thing in the world to the darkest thing in the world.
yeah.
So it's quite interesting. But that's a new book that he is writing. But it was a 2 hour and a half conversation about life, about taking risks, about following your gut, following your heart. So I was scrambled. Oh, D. At the end of this conversation, I was like, wow. It was one of those weird life moments, I think, where my mom, I was like, I was in the metro, like, what the hell just happened? Because he had some weird mystical energy about it. It was really bizarre. It was really bizarre. But
Well, did you have any big takeaways from the
yeah,
conversation?
one thing that he said that was very interesting, or one thing that I asked him was, did you always have this feeling that you were going to win, this feeling that you could be great from a young age? Because he's 44 years old and he's very successful in his field. And if you go through his life, he's taken lots of risks. He's traveled around the world. You know, he always went where he feared the most, essentially, is what we talked about. And I was like, where do you to live that life? You have to have some sort of belief that you're gonna win, that you can encounter obstacles and move forward, and you know, just win and get past it. And I was like, did you always have that feeling? And he said, since I was 19 years old, I've always had that feeling. And it was just
Hmm.
powerful because I resonate with that feeling. And I think you do too.
Hey, let's go.
I think you do too. And what he looked at me in the eye and he was like, be very grateful that you have that feeling because a lot of people don't. And it hit. It hit. So that left me like, wow, it was one of those, you're looking at him in the eyes and your body's kind of shaking a little bit. It's very, it's feeling, the particles are moving. Um, so yeah, that feeling that you're gonna win, that feeling that you can be great at whatever, you know? Do you know what I'm talking about or no?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. I just think it's so cool that you have this very deep conversation with a stranger in Paris. I mean,
Strange, stranger. Deep, bro. We talked about, he was like, have you faced much adversity in your life? And I was like, I had to think. I was like, adversity. And I was like, when you look at the fact, I lived a pretty privileged life in terms of what I have, but there were challenges along the way, for example. And so, anyways, I give him my life rundown, moving countries, lower middle class family, nothing crazy there.
yeah.
Had everything I need. I played sports, you know. Um, so I gave him, personal challenge that I had just like growing up. And he told me that he used to be 300 pounds and used to be a rugby player.
Hmm.
And when you see him, he's a skinny, he's a little bit, he's probably as tall as you, skinny guy, like in shape. So he used to be 300 pounds.
Were you about to say a little bit shorter? Were you about to say a little bit shorter? For everyone, I'm 5'10", all right? I'm about average size. Carry on.
You know what? The slight hesitation, I was like, he's gonna catch me on this one. He's gonna get me. So he's about
Funny.
5'10", and he lost all that weight because he went to the doctor and he was about to go pro, but they told him, listen, you either go pro, but you won't have your life later on. You are too heavy. You're going to have life complications. You're going to have health complications. And so he decided to choose life in a lot of ways. So he did not go pro and he got to work and he lost his weight. And it was at this age, once he had lost his weight, where his mentality became, I can do this. If I can do this, what else can I do? And his path to his success was, you know, it had a lot of ups and downs, but it was always about just following your heart and go where you're scared. Don't let the fear of being scared to try to do anything stop you. So it was beautiful. Yeah, it was a beautiful
Wow.
moment.
Stirring, inspiring.
Inspiring. 45. So I'm sitting there like I was about to go home. It's 9:30. I was about to hang out with a friend and I was not feeling 100%. So I was like, I'm gonna take this time alone. I've been also thinking quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. My mind has been like, what is Isha gonna do come August? Well,
Yeah.
what is the next plan? So that has in the last couple of weeks where I think my overall health hasn't been the highest, my overall physical health hasn't been highest. Therefore, as we talked about last week, mental health starts to, question things. You're like, oh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
And so I was in the stage. And so to me, I'm a big believer in omens, big believer in omens from the spiritual
Okay.
world. And so I really deemed this guy is. One, I had also been having thoughts of, wanting to head back into the corporate world, even,
Say that
which we haven't.
again? Did I hear that right? What was that? No, surely something broke up. There was a connection error. I must have misheard.
Sorry, I know. Corporate world. That thought has been stirring in my mind. I've been like, I just want to live in a studio, man. Just give me a little studio, and be able to control all my surroundings. And
There's a studio as in somewhere where there's music, or a studio as in like a studio apartment?
sorry, studio apartment,
Okay, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
studio apartment. And he pretty much flashed that, like he flashed that idea. I threw that idea away. It was no longer in the brain. It's gone. It's gone. Because no, because following my heart is what got me here in the first place, and I love where I am in the position that I am. So yeah, don't know what's next, but we'll keep adventuring into the unknown. He was mentioning one thing that he did for about 4 years. It's called back roads. I'm not sure if you've heard of this.
Mm.
It's a travel company that hosts people for getaways to all different parts of the world. Usually it's physical activity involved, so it's hiking 4 days in Italy or cycling across France for 13 days. It's all these experiences that are usually pretty privileged. So you stay at high-rated hotels and you sometimes eat at Michelin star restaurants. So it's for the high end of
Mm.
people. And she was a tour guide for this company for about 4 years. And yeah, he was like, you learn. This is where I developed my ability to just talk to people because you're going into for example, French Alps for 4 days with some 15 strangers, and you have to lead them to places and explain different parts of the environment and chat, and just get to know them. And so he was like, fantastic way to rub shoulders with some people and just in general. But he was like, you should 100% do this. That was how the conversation ended. He was like, you're doing this. He's like, and I was like, okay. I actually might. But yeah, that'll be in 2026. So anyway, this is as of last night. So this is all fresh, but wanted to share
Yeah,
that. Wanted to share that with you.
how exciting.
Um,
Those are the like spontaneous things that happen when you are in Paris, when you move to a different country and you meet new people,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm trying to think because how do these occurrences happen? A lot of them, most of the ones that I've had in the past year, I've been alone at the time. So I don't know if that's, coincidence, but you're alone. You're usually in a social place alone. I think when people are in social places alone, eh, maybe you attract some sort of energy. You're open. You're like, oh, this guy's just hanging out. I don't know, but yeah, there is something about it, and you meet all these characters, and they're just characters. Most of them you don't ever see them again. But
Yeah.
it's funny
So what
because
was this? I might have missed it in the beginning. What was the setting? I know you were at like by a bridge in Paris,
so
but what were you doing?
Bridge in Paris, beautiful sunset, like unreal sunset. I'm listening to my headphones. I'm listening to music. Like I'm listening to my favorite song, watching the sunset on the bridge. That's it.
You're
That is
sitting
all I'm doing.
out. Okay, it's not you're not at a market or anything.
I'm
You're
not
not
at a
at a
mark. I'm not at a market.
concert.
Yeah, just out, just
Okay.
out and about, hanging out. Um, and these interactions are so hard to piece together during at the time. but I know there are just some of those that in 20 years you're like, "Yeah," you know, or that.
Yeah,
I just know in hindsight, you'll be able to, your mind's going to be able to bring meaning and piece some crazy story together, which is cool. And he mentioned this about stories, and he was like, I just wanted to live my life in a way where I look back and say, what was my story? What was my story? What did what was my story? That's so interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. A shift from the corporate mindset that I was thinking of. But anyways, yeah, cool life, magical moment. Go life. Yeah,
go live.
go life.
Yeah, you know that I've heard the magnificent thing of doing something super hard and so that everything else sort of seems easy. Like I think it was Joe Rogan. He said he starts his day off with a super intense hour and a half or 2 hour workout. And he knows after that, nothing's going to be as hard as that workout in the morning. So life is a breeze. It's an interesting mindset.
Yeah, it does make sense if you think about it because then let's say you're studying the next day and your mind is like, oh, I'm tired. Like, let's go. It's like you were the guy this morning that just did that. That was you, I'm pretty sure. And like, oh yeah, you're right. That was me.
It
It is an interesting one. Yeah.
is.
Anywho, anywho, how are you doing? How was your weekend trip to California back home? What
Oh, it
went
was
on?
wonderful. Well, the thing is, it was mostly just moving. So we were just moving Mary from her old place, the place where we lived together, to a spot in Newport. So the whole, since I got there late at night, Friday, we just talked for a little bit, went to bed in the morning, started moving all day up until
Ooh,
Saturday night. And then probably Saturday night at 10:30, we finished setting up the bed at the new place. Then at 7 a.m. on Sunday, we started moving again all the way up until my flight. But the funny thing is, if you're doing it with someone you love, it's still an enjoyable time, you
it's
know?
still good vibes, is it? You're
Yeah,
still
exactly.
laughing.
Still having a good time, still laughing, still enjoying. You're working. And there were some moments of stress. We had to get rid of a couch and we couldn't carry it ourselves. So we needed someone to come and pick it up. And she wanted me to be there. So it had to be done this weekend. We ended up putting it on Facebook Marketplace for free, and the first people came over, two of them, and because we told them, hey, this is gonna. We remember when we moved into the apartment, we hired movers, so we told these people, hey, you're gonna need to bring more than just one person. This is super heavy couch. Anyway, they come with two people. They gave up after 15 minutes. They literally they flipped couches and they were upset. They said this couch is in such good condition. We want to take it so bad, but we can't. It's too heavy. It's too heavy for us. And we're like, oh no, this is would have been perfect. Anyway, we then put it back up and some guys were saying, "Oh, I'll come get it right now." It's just, and I was like, "Do you have any other people?" And they said, "No, it's just me." And I said, "I'm sorry, man.
Don't even.
We can't.
No.
We can't." And they're like, "No, no, we can't." And I was doing it. People are there's some rude people online because it was with Mary. It was on Mary's Facebook, and I was the one messaging these people. We ended up getting it all figured out, and then later in the night, Mary said, "This person called me a bitch." I was like, "Oh shoot!" He said, "Sweetie, it wasn't about you. They were talking to me. Don't even sweat it. It's not a big deal." But yeah, it was a good time. It was also really nostalgic going back, especially going back
Mm.
to the place that we lived together. We lived together in this apartment. It was our first apartment that we were both on the lease that we signed together. It was just us. And
How
it
long were you there
wasn't,
for?
I was there for probably 11, 10 months.
Okay.
10 months. So yeah, and it hasn't been that long. So it feels, I walk in, there's still things that I bought that are still there. The salt is that I bought from the store is still there. So and every you just feel so normal and it feels so you're so used to everything.
Mm,
And so it was an interesting, it was a wave of emotions that was a little overwhelming at first, just because it hasn't been that long, and I think it's because I'm doing long distance and I do miss being with Mary. So yeah, it was interesting. After some time, I'm kind of glad we've closed the book or closed the chapter on that period of life, living together in that place. Now she's in a new place, she's starting fresh, and we're not going to go back to that place probably ever. But yeah, it was good. And then I got to see some of my colleagues, my old
all
former.
right.
We went and
Which
grabbed coffee.
I'm sure they're excited to see.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. But yeah, nostalgia. Did you ever miss Chicago? Do you ever miss, your where you were living before?
Yeah.
Is that not really
Yes.
something that you don't miss?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's just that feeling of change. But I do miss Chicago. I miss my old apartment. Sometimes my friends back there, which by the way, they're coming this coming weekend. We got Gabe coming, we got Jack coming, we got Harry coming, we got my
Nice.
mom and my brother. So
Whoa.
I am not even sure. I'm not even sure, but that's what's happening. So I'm not even sure.
Was it
That's what's
planned that
happening.
your mom and brother were going to come the same weekend as
No,
all of you?
mom and brother's last minute. I still haven't told Gabe and Jack this, but okay, we're just gonna, it's gonna be an action packed. It's gonna be action packed
It'll be
weekend.
fun. It'll be
It'll
fun.
be fun. It'll be fun. But this is the first time you do long distance.
Yes, doing long distance with Mary. I did do long distance with my ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And last time we spoke, you had mentioned that Mary's plan is to move to Denver, or is that we'll see what happens sort of situation?
Yeah, it's more, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Okay. Do you know what? You know what surprised me, OD, is the decision for you to move to Denver was one of those that I was like, whoa. You know how like your mind places people like automatically, like, oh, Daryl, yeah, Daryl's like this, he's like this, my other friend
Yeah.
like this, like this. You stepped out of the circle that my mind put you in. And I was like, wait a minute. He didn't do that. Did he do that? He did that. And I was like, my God. Yeah. I was like, he's up to something. He's like, you're like the guy who just lost, you're moving. Yeah. Very,
It's
very impressive.
fascinating how we do that. We put people in boxes, and it's just natural, but we
It's
do
natural.
put people in boxes, and we think this is how they are, you know? When humans are so complex, you really can't, but you also can't help yourself from putting people in
No,
boxes.
it's because the brain is trying to predict. It's like if I'm talking to Oderah, my brain is like, okay, this is how Oderah usually acts. This is how Oderah usually speaks automatically. And so yeah, the little box is
Yeah,
funny. But
it's interesting. That reminds me of something that someone said. I can't remember if it was. I'm sure it was an author of some sort. I think it might have been the author of Super Communicators. I don't know if
mm,
you've read that. Stephen or something. Charles Duhigg.
no, but you've called me a super communicator one time, and I
Ah.
appreciated that compliment. Yeah,
It's true. It's true. No, it might not have been him, so apologies if I'm incorrect on this. But before going and presenting, when you're nervous, or if you're doing really anything that you're nervous on, it was Charles, yeah. So there was a fascinating study, and he referenced it in his book, and it was statistically African Americans or Black people do worse on standardized tests than their counterparts. And people were trying to, people were fascinated about this. Well, why is this the case? Oh, is it they're not getting the same type of training, or they're not getting the tutors, the same type of tutors, etc. And they did a study. Basically, they had one group that took their group of African Americans, Black people, that took the standardized test. And then they had another group that wrote out all of their identities. So yeah, I'm African American. I am a brother. I am a I'm from Nigerian, Belgian descent. I love sports. I have a girlfriend. I'm a boyfriend. All bunch of different identities. I love to read. I love this. I love that. And those people perform statistically much or significantly better, I should say, than the other group. And the thought process is, or the takeaway is if you can think about yourself, think about all of your identities and not just try to categorize yourself in this one bucket, you can perform better somehow. And it is a little bit interesting. The conclusion you can draw many conclusions, but that was the study, and that was the results, is that they did better when they had their identities. What the conclusion is, who knows? But that was the results of the test, and that I found that to be super interesting
Yeah, it's
because
incredible.
why would that be? You know?
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you're nervous, and it might help you to think about, okay, yes, I'm giving this speech.
Hmm.
But this speech doesn't define me, or
Hmm.
whatever this thing that I'm anxious about, it doesn't define me because look at what I am. I'm so many different things. This is just one little part of me, but I'm a friend, right? I'm a brother. I'm a boyfriend. I am so many more things than this whatever it is that I'm anxious about or nervous about. So I guess that would be my conclusion of the study, but utterly fascinating.
I have heard of this one, and I remember it left me like I was like, wow, wow. So, for example, what it's saying is that it's unhelpful for me to even say, hmm, if I go, I am a risk adverse person. If you look at my past, I'm a risk averse person, and I go around, I tell myself, I'm risk averse. I can't do that. Is that helpful? Is that helpful in any way, really? Because then when that moment comes, that risky opportunity or that thing that you're afraid of, your mind goes, bro, you're risk averse. Don't even, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm risk averse. I don't do stuff like that. That's what I'm thinking when you say that. And it's this identity box that we put ourselves in. And it reminded me, do you know of that experiment of just it's either an ant or a spider, and they're drawing circles on a white piece of paper, and they're drawing circles on the ant or the spider, whatever it was. Let's say it was a spider. And when they draw that circle, the spider does not find its way out. The spider's like, oh, I'm trapped. And then they that's experiment number one. So it's like, okay, the spider sees this thing that isn't real and believes it's trapped. The next one, they do it again, but this time they draw the circle a little bit too close to the spider, and he's got an arm sticking out of the circle. And so he's like, oh, I'm out. So he doesn't get trapped in the circle. And then
Hmm.
you can never put the spider back in the circle because he knows that that wasn't real in the first place.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
That that was just an illusion that wasn't real. And so something that's helpful, I think, is to ask ourselves, what circles have I drawn for myself? What circles have I drawn that if I just take a step out, then I'll realize that, oh, it wasn't that scary after all, or it wasn't that, or I can be that person, you know?
Yeah,
Very, very, very interesting. I like that one a lot because it's easy for me to visualize that, especially in times of like anxiety. Is like, am I drawing circles? Is this situation that bad? What, can we step out? Yeah,
right.
interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, and yeah, we do probably, it's good that we're thinking of our identities, but we probably do put too much weight towards some of the limiting ones, right? Like the risk averse.
The
I mean,
limiting
I
ones.
do I do look at myself as risk averse, but at the same time, I don't even know if this is like logical, but I also do look at myself as being a risk taker in
There you
some
go.
aspect of life, right? So, and I wonder if that's probably more of a recent development because historically I have looked at myself as risk averse, but I do think everyone is with certain things. And I don't
Yeah,
think you can just say this person is risk averse, or there's probably very few people that this person is just risk averse. They're not taking any risk in life.
true.
You know,
That's
that's
true.
probably too broad of a um, just it's probably just not a categorization that's accurate.
Or maybe you stepped out of the circle in the last, let's say, couple of years one time,
Yeah.
and now you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can pull the lever of risk averse, and I can pull the lever of taking risk. And maybe it's helpful if we all look at it as I have all these identities and qualities. Every human being has all the identities in the world there are, and we're just pulling the lever sometimes and bringing it back down. So even with emotions, like I don't get angry all the time. It's like I do. It's usually that lever of that emotion is dormant. You know, it's not active. Sometimes it gets active. And so when these things happen, and we act, if I act out of character for myself, it's like, oh no, I've always had that. I've always had that in me. It was just that quality or that identity was in the back. I was sleeping, and it just pulled up a little bit. It just woke up. And it's like, oh yeah, I do have that. Oh, I can be. Or the introvert extrovert thing. The introvert extrovert thing is fascinating. And how helpful is it to be like, I am an introvert or I am an extrovert? Is it? I want to speculate this. I haven't thought about this quite a bit, but even in the risk averse scenario, in what scenarios would it be helpful for you to just say, I'm risk averse? Maybe the answer is pretty simple. Just when you're making the decision, if you're making a decision, you just pick the least risky one. Or if we do introvert extrovert, let's do the introvert extrovert. So if I'm deciding whether I want to go out, I want to watch a movie, I want to talk to my mom, which one do I do? I don't know. Then you pull in the lever of whatever your identity is. Like, oh, I'm an extrovert. I'm gonna go
Mm.
out, even though I don't know. I'm just yapping, but I'm so like I guess it's
Yeah,
helpful in this. It's helpful in decision making, but it isn't helpful at all when trying new things and you're trying to learn. It's like the best. We're just yeah, we're gonna
No, I'm just laughing at you saying I'm just yapping. I just thought that was actually really funny. But
yeah,
no, it's good. It's good.
yeah.
It is interesting. And I also saw recently it was it was also tangential to the Super Communicators book. he mentioned this other psychologist, and there's some interesting work psychologists do. I mean, you could have a whole podcast on just interesting work that psychologists do,
Yeah.
and the studies that they do. And one of the things that he saw was that everyone, introvert or extrovert, finds joy in social interactions to some extent, which I thought was really interesting. Like, even if you think you're an introvert,
Mhm.
maybe it's more so I enjoy, or I think the classic definition people say, or the classic examples, do you get energy from social interactions or do you feel drained?
Mhm.
If you get energy, you're an extrovert. If you feel drained, you're an introvert. But he kind of reframed it and says everyone feels more happy after good social interactions. I'm not sure if they're mutually exclusive or if they both can't be true at the same time. Can you feel happy and then also feel a little bit drained? Perhaps. I mean, think about
Perhaps.
yeah, think about doing hard things in life. You're happy you did it, but
Yeah.
you might be a little bit drained. You might not have a bunch of energy after. And I thought that was interesting because that almost made me want to lean into the social side of things a little bit more.
Mm.
Not sure if I have or
Mm.
not, but and actually that made me want to when you mentioned you went to that social setting, really you were just watching the sunset. But did
Yeah,
you
just
have any
watching sunset.
intention of talking to people? Because I know
Never.
we talked about that last
I
week.
never do. Oh, to be fair, yes, we did talk about this last week about the coffee shop. You're there at the coffee shop minding your own business, right? Is what we were saying last week. Like you're
Well, yeah,
minding.
I was
Yeah.
thinking of when we were talking about maybe it was 2 weeks ago, trying to meet friends and just are you just doing things? Are you doing things with the intent? You're not going to that bridge and watching sunset with the intention of making a friend or going to,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
but that's just something you like to do. This is just an example of what you're saying. Just do things you like to do, and you'll meet people whilst doing them.
Just do things that you like to do. Just do things that you like to do. Okay, I just got excited about that because when I think of my other encounter that was very similar to this was back when I was in Greece, in when I was traveling around backpacking in one of the islands back in June, at the beginning of June, literally the same way. I was on the beach, lying on a rock in the water. So I was doing what I like to do, which is enjoy the sun.
Wow.
It was yeah,
How serene. How serene.
it was amazing. Yeah. I was just lying down on a rock. That's all I was doing, just taking up some sun. And this beach was at the bottom of some rocks that were looking above. So to get to this beach, you have to go down these rocks. So the view from the top is pretty cool. So you can see the whole beach, you can see everybody. So I was quite visibly out there per se on this rock. And long story short, these two people ended up taking a picture of me when I was on the rock just because they thought it was a cool vibe, like rock and beach. It was just a cool vibe. And I saw them the next day. I was just chilling at a coffee shop and they came up to me and they're like, we took a picture and we were like, maybe we'll see this kid around and we're gonna airdrop him the pictures. They sat down next to me. I hung out with them for the next 2 weeks. And they're
Like
still my
those are the people you hung out with the next 2 weeks.
those are the people that I hung out with the next 2 weeks. Straight up. They took me to Athens. I saw Athens, never seen Athens before. So yeah, but we're gonna continue this in a second. But yeah, yeah. We're
Okay,
back.
we're back. Serendipity. That's what you were talking.
Serendipity is essentially what I was talking about, wasn't it? Do what you like to do, and stuff happens.
And stuff happens. You just happened to run into those people at the coffee shop and you hung out with them for the next 2 weeks and became
And,
really close with them, right?
yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's interesting. Like maybe that's just bad, or I don't know, but got to have new experiences because of that. I got to go to a new city, or just even if it's just for the conversation, you know. I think a lot of times like, ooh, but what did I get out of that? No, it was just for the experience. But yeah, do what you like to do. Do what you like to do.
Yeah.
Um, I was about to switch gears because I have a question for you back on your move. But if you have anything else to add
No, nothing to
to
add on that. I was going to ask you a separate question, but please.
um, so back to the circles that we draw for ourselves. If I am under the impression that you really step out of your circle in making this move to Denver, are you under that same impression, or how do you view it? How do you view this as, you know? How do you view it?
Yeah, it definitely is a big move. And I really tried not to think about it. I really just
Right.
tried to just go, just do what you want. It'll all work out. And it did at first, I could have that mindset and just not really look back. It wasn't difficult at all. Mary was getting sad. I was sad too, but I was trying to just say, hey, let's just do it. Let's just move forward. Everything will be okay. And there were some moments during the past 2 months where the emotions were a little bit more visceral than other times. And
I'm sure.
that's just, I think it's very natural, but it's also something that when you feel you should lean in, don't ignore because it's important, right? It's important, it's natural, and it's good to feel those emotions. But yeah, I mean, I always thought it's funny because I always thought Mary and I would make our way out of Orange County eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mary and I had talked about this before too. We talked about making our way, moving to a different city, exploring something new. We don't want to just we would think our story would be cooler and just more
There you go.
interesting, more fascinating if we explored different places and didn't just
Hey,
it would be the thing is, I do think a life in one place for the whole for your whole life in one city, raising a family, having kids, that's also beautiful and just as beautiful. But for us, we're just interested in exploring new things. Right? So it's not as if one way is better than the other, but you just got to follow what you're interested in doing. You know,
yeah.
I already love that I know a city in Colorado really well. I love that, and I know Cal. I'm really happy that I know all the cities in California that I know really well. Like I'm happy that I have that those experiences, but I'm also happy that I have this experience and the next experience. So yeah, it definitely was a big switch, but for me, I could see this in my future.
Right.
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 I'm not someone to talk about my plans very often and openly because sometimes I resonate more with just doing it and then we'll talk about it once it's done.
Right.
But I don't think that's the right way to do that. I know your dad talked about kind of work in silence, move in silence. I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing, but sometimes I just want to do things without having to explain myself a ton to other people, right? Because that sometimes is just frustrating and a little bit bothersome. And if you just kind of do what you like to do and talk about it after the fact. I know when I told some people that I was moving out here, they were saying, "Oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me earlier? I would have done everything I could do to convince you
Mm.
not to." That's what someone said to me. And in
Mhm.
my head, I was like, that's why sometimes it's better to just do what you want to do, and you let people know. You only let people that need to know, and for the rest, you let them know after the fact. Now, I also know that you could probably be in this mental state that is not very rational, and perhaps if you talk to someone, you can realize that, and they can help you make the right decision. But it's your life, Do what you want to do.
You're gonna learn if you make a mistake, you're gonna learn anyways.
Like the if I was so in such a dark place that I couldn't stay here, I could just go back. You know what I mean? Of course, it wouldn't be ideal. I mean, it would be like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have gone in the first place. But again, back to the no regret mindset. I wouldn't have had
No,
that. My mindset, if I go back, it would have been, oh, now I know that's not for me. I've realized already, long distance isn't for me. It's not something that I want to do for a long time. So, and I don't think I knew how. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I don't think I knew how much I wouldn't like it.
mm,
So going forward, that will certainly be more of a factor, at least as of now, in my decision making in the future. So yeah.
that's why I admire the decision that you made so much because you you had the job, you had the place, and you had the positive and healthy relationship. And an outsider might look at that and be like, "Hey, he's crazy to make that decision," as you encountered people did communicate that to you. And so the fact that you did that, first of all, tells me that the relationship is really healthy and positive, to be honest, because no unhealthy relationship is going to be able to communicate their way to this. Like you're going, oh, you're not prioritizing me. Like, what about, no healthy relationship gonna be able to talk through that. So that is, I admire that fondly.
Yeah, my mom's
And
sorry, carry on. Sorry, carry
yeah, okay. Your mom communicated to you the same thing?
on. Well, she was just I was just going to mention my mom said something very similar, which was this is going to be good no matter what for your relationship.
Yeah.
She says, I mean, I could leave it at that, but she went a little bit deeper and said, if it works out, you will truly know that you're meant to be. And if it doesn't, then you weren't. And that is good. That's a good outcome that you guys were able to separate ways if you're not meant to be together. Now, of course, Mary wasn't very fond of that. Fond of that.
Normal.
She didn't even like the idea of there's a possibility that we're not meant to be. And
Got it.
that's totally fine. We're meant to be so, and so the way I rephrase it now is we're meant to be so we will be able to get through something like this. And it's funny. I think I did I tell you this? My parents did long distance across. I think we did talk about this
Yeah.
on a previous episode, but my parents did long
Episode two.
episode
Episode
two.
two.
But anyway, I want to switch gears a little bit.
Ooh, okay.
Ask you about how do you handle comparing yourself to others in this wild, chaotic world of ours? Is this something that you do and you don't think much of it? Is this something that you try not to do? Is this something that you even think about at all?
I think it's what's helped me the most with this because I have I still do it now, right? I think it's a normal human thing. We're part of the tribe and we compare ourselves to the tribe. But I used to be, this used to be like a problem for me or a bigger issue, I guess. And part of it is growing up. I do truly believe that the more you experience life, the more you have a sense of agency, the more you understand that, oh, if I can do, I mean, if you have the privilege of making choices, if you have the privilege of choice, by far the biggest privilege in the whole world. Like you want to take someone's privilege away, you put them in an environment where they don't have a choice. Then it's like, whoa. So if I have the choice and I'm aware of the choice that I can make, and I make that choice, and a lot of it is proving to yourself, to be honest, that you can do certain things. And to me, that makes it so I'm always in battle with myself. I'm always competing with myself and not in battle with someone else. If in my mind, I'm not like that person can do that thing, more power to that person is the framework that I try to have. But it's more of, man, I couldn't do that thing back in a couple years ago. I tried to do that thing and I couldn't do that thing. And I think if I can do that thing, then I can open that door and get to the other side and there's something for me there. And when you do that, the evidence that you build for yourself, I think builds confidence in your ability that you can. And I think for me, that's been the biggest factor is, man, I'm playing this game and it can be not a selfish mindset, but it is a very individualistic per se that I'm really playing this game of life, me versus me at the end of the day, in terms of
Hmm.
growing, right? And so I think this thinking of it as a competition against myself versus a competition against others has been the biggest factor for me and doing things that I didn't think that I could do. So when I look back, it's like, no, bro, you did that and now you do this. And it's, everyone is in their own path, their own journey. And yeah, I think that's factor number one. But easier said than done. Easier said than done. Because naturally, especially I love I love hanging out with people that I admire, right? Because if I'm talking to you, OD, and I'm like, I actually think Oderah naturally my brain is gonna compare myself to in certain aspects and be like, I think Oderah is a great speaker. And in my mind, I'm like, I admire that so much about him that I want to become a better speaker too. And then I go, and so I'm not competing with you to become a better speaker than you, but I go back and look at myself and be like, how can I not say the word like so much so I can become a better speaker to myself? But maybe the idea didn't originate from me. Maybe the idea originated from you. And that's where it's like if you hang around people you admire,
Yeah.
you're going
No, there's a
to
lot
gain from that.
there. There's a lot
But
there.
yeah,
Like the reframing, I think is good. Yeah, I think that's a if you can do that, then the world is your oyster. It's not me versus you, me versus them. It's me versus me.
yeah.
And I love that. I love that. I also like the selfishness, the selfishness. It's kind of gets a bad rap. It does. But you kind of have to be. And that might be a hot take, but you do
I
in
mean,
real life, you have to be a little selfish.
I was talking about it with Omar today, this exact topic. It's your own life. You have to be selfish. No one's gonna care about you more than you care about yourself. In that essence, it would be a disservice for you to not be. selfish in certain scenarios. There are certain scenarios where you're not going to be selfish, of course. But I think that should be the baseline level. And there's layers, and it's just a word that gets a bad rep. I think you're right. It's just a word that gets a bad rep.
Yeah, I know. Maybe there's a better word. Maybe prioritizing yourself. I don't know what how you could maybe re rephrase it to make it more maybe resonate with more people. There was an interesting Naval in that podcast said something.
I knew you were thinking of Naval.
Yeah, I just thought of that. And part of me absolutely loved it. And part of me understood why Mary didn't like it at all.
Hmm.
Dynamic of Mary and I, she likes me to go to different social settings, and she notices sometimes she's pulling me to them as opposed to as opposed to me just wanting to go on my own. And
Which that's what Naval was talking about, which I love that part. It's like if my wife has a dinner and someone asks, like, "Is Naval coming?" Like, you gotta ask him. Uh, I love that. I love that. Really.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Anyway, but I'm sure the other partner in the situation maybe is not so fond of this idea.
yeah, and you have to respect that too, because Mary looks at me, and a lot of spouses look at their spouse as someone who goes to things with them, and they're by their side, and they're a team. So it's a tough thing to come to terms with, and where's that middle ground? But I do think that only doing things that you enjoy and not doing things that you don't enjoy. The one thing that he also said that was hilarious was if someone asked me something that I would never ask anyone else, I'm not even responding to them. I I love that. It's like you're asking me something that I wouldn't dare to ask you because I look at that as maybe not inappropriate, but something that you just don't ask another person out of respect. And now, and for whatever reason, you can ask me that, and now I feel obligated to respond to you when I would never even ask that in the first place. He said, I don't even respond to those questions or those
But
requests. He also did
those requests,
he
those requests
also
is
did
actually
mention
funny.
it's easier to get to that point. It's easier to be in that mindset when you've accomplished great things. And so I do kind of he was talking about setting your schedule and only doing things that you like, and it's easier to do that when you have accomplished great things. But I do think that there's something that we could take away from that too, which is you should be a little bit selfish in your life and do things that you enjoy and try to just focus on the things that you enjoy and doing those things. I guess the steel man in the other side is
Mm,
serendipity. You go to these things, Mary pulls me to this thing that I'm not really interested in going to, and bang, I meet a photographer from Australia,
that
and
happens.
he tells me some profound things that I go and explore.
Very
How do you
true.
think about that? How do you think about the two sides of that coin?
Mm, that's a tough coin. That's one of the tougher coins, I think. That is one of the tougher coins. The oh, I don't really want to like who's there, Mary? Who's there at this party? Oh, Chris? Oh, I hate Chris. I'm not going to that. It's like it's so hard to be like, oh, okay, but
I mean,
that
even
was very
friends
difficult.
too, even friends inviting you to things. Like, it doesn't need to be a spouse, it could be a friend, and you're just a little bit hesitant to go to whatever it is that they want you to go to.
It's true that the more experience you have, the more confidence you are in saying no in the first place. And I'm saying no to this because you're probably saying no because based on previous times that I've done something similar, I have better uses of my time. And that's why maybe someone like Naval can say these things is because he has more experience than us and we're a lot younger. But it's funny because before I met the photographer, I had a friend, I don't know, I might have mentioned this already. Yeah. I had a friend who had texted me, let's go to bowling. Like, let's go bowl. And I was like, I'm super down to go. Yeah, I thought about it and I was like, I'm down to go bowling. This was about half an hour before I had the encounter. And I was sitting there eating some dinner, watching the sunset at a different part. And I was eating some dinner and I was like, do I want to go? Do I really want to go bowling? And I was like, no, I don't want to go bowling. I'm watching the most beautiful stuff in my life. I got music in my headphones. I'm having the time of my life. I don't want to go bowling. So I was like, I'm actually not going to make it to bowling. And then 30 minutes later, encounter. So, that is, I think we're going to be learning that coin. We're going to be talking about and learning on that coin for a while. But it's a tough one. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean,
On the way you would approach it?
yeah, I think it's do whatever you think seems right. And then back to my philosophy, which is then don't regret your decision. Maybe you can learn from it, but don't regret your decision. So for you, it felt right to stay there. It felt right to continue enjoying the moment, and then you go with that.
Yeah. And maybe I go to bowling and I have another crazy experience that's also crazy and life-changing per se. And the Australian man, he doesn't even exist in my world, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm not even thinking about the Australian man. I'm thinking about the other crazy experience you have. So there's no wrong answer. Going with married to the party or you staying home and reading a book, for example. There's no wrong answer, is there? Obviously, when you have another person involved, maybe it could be a little bit more complicated. But with good communication, like for
Yeah.
example, Naval, it seems like he explained it that his wife is like, yeah. But you got to ask Naval. Clearly, they have communicated that extensively, and like this is how we approach the situation. But I, I completely, I'm just thinking of my ex relationship, and one of her things. This is the same. I experienced the same thing. Like he's like, we're going to here with my friends. Like, I'm like, for real? You sure? So yeah, it's funny. It's
It
funny,
is
man.
funny. And it's like if I say no and she makes a point, such as, hey, I've asked you to go to this, the past 2 months, and you said no to every single one. This is a little ridiculous. Then yeah, okay.
Yeah.
She'll make her point and she's good. She'll make her point. She always does. And if it resonates with me and it feels right, okay, you know what? You're right. It's been just one-sided. You got to compromise. Relationships a little bit different, but friendships too. You do got to compromise. I mean, look, this is your friend. He's asked you to hang out the last 5 times, and you've said no every single time. Either you got to make a decision. Do I want to continue being friends with them, or
Mm,
because that person will probably, after a certain amount of rejections, just stop reaching out to you. Yeah, it's interesting. On
yeah.
the topic of friendships, at least in the US, but there have been ripple effects across the world. Politics is certainly on people's minds right now. And I think just government, partially the economy with tariffs, right, impacting so many different people. I had a fascinating conversation with someone, and they
Mm,
mentioned that they unfriended one of their dearest friends because they voted for the opposite political party as them. What are your thoughts on unfriending someone for voting for someone you despise? Or just maybe disagreements in this realm?
that's a tough one. I think contact is needed because, for example, if someone is like, and we know who we're talking about here, so we can just put it in. If someone is like, you voted for Trump, so I'm cutting you off. I actually don't fully agree with that as a concept. I would want to know, you voted for Trump? I'm not gonna lie, there's something about me that doesn't like that at all. Why? Can you help me understand? Help me understand your thought process here. And maybe they have a very specific reason based on their past experiences, based on when they were growing up, that this happened to them, and Trump has this very specific law that he put into place regarding this, and this is the most important thing to me. So that is why. And you can, from there on, you can make that decision yourself, right? But I do lean towards valuing the person as they are, valuing how you feel when you hang out with the person, the energy versus the dislike or like of a human being, of one human being who has a lot of power. I don't want to make that who has a lot of power and very powerful. But I'm one guy, because you don't like this one guy. This guy's playing the game of not being liked. You're probably not gonna like him. I don't know. I don't know. First, those are my first initial thoughts. What was your reaction
Yeah,
when you heard
no,
that?
I have a very similar reaction as you. And honestly, I think I would have been a little bit surprised if you didn't have that initial reaction.
Okay.
But this is someone dear to me who unfriended this person. So I wanted to understand, how could this happen? You have enjoyed every single one of your interactions with this individual, but you will unfriend them because they marked a different name in a ballot than you. And their argument, and I respect it, I disagree with it, but I do respect it, was that they view, and we'll say, Trump as racist, and they view their friend or old friend as being okay with racist behavior. Right. And so
Mm,
now it becomes a value thing. Now it
mm,
becomes, okay, I can't be friends with someone who doesn't share the same values as me and who is letting, this is again in air quotes because this is what this individual is saying, letting genocide continue in the Middle East. And then this is the jab to people like you and I that we got in return, which would love to hear your thoughts on. And if you are okay with being around people and having those people in your life, then you don't have the same level of standard when it comes to those around you and their values in life. And let's say it, saying it simply, you're not as virtuous as myself and others that would act like me. What do you think about that? And again, I understand, okay, I get it. If we don't align on values, if you just say, "Oh, I'm not friends with this person because we don't align on values," I think everyone would say, "Oh, that's fair." But then when you say, "Oh, I'm not going to be friends with them because they voted for another person," that means that we don't align on values. That's when people start to think it could be a little ridiculous or it could be irrational.
Yeah.
Although there are
It,
similarities.
yeah. I guess it's judging someone if everyone has a spectrum of values. Let's say there's five, 10, that number can be whatever you want it to be. But let's say there's 10, and there's one of those values that you don't align with. Are you gonna throw the whole person? Are you gonna throw the whole person away? Is the question for that one value? Or are you gonna be like, you know what? Kind of bizarre. Maybe it's kind of bizarre that this person has this one value that I completely disagree with. But also, that means we're not gonna argue all the time on things. That means we're not gonna be agreeing with each other all the time. That means there's gonna be some fire in the relationship. There's gonna be some, it's gonna be a real relationship because you're not gonna be agreeing with everything. It's tough to look at that when that person's value is deeply affecting who you believe you are. And that's when it gets really tricky. But your friend who was saying that Trump is a racist, my mind would go to, okay, let me find out if this person is also a racist, I'll be like, let me sniff this friend's tendencies to be racist if that's something that I really don't agree with, instead of being because he likes this person has that have done a lot of things that have been, then, go straight
Yeah.
to the source. The source is your friend. Go straight to the source. You're connecting dots, or you're avoiding, you know, the primary source, which
And
is
the
your
thing
friend.
is,
Your
in this
friend.
case,
Yeah.
they have never seen any type of racist behavior from this person, but it's guilty by association.
Yeah. Guilty by association.
And the fact that you don't hold this standard, you don't hold this value high enough to where you could support someone who they believe is not expressing this value or clearly doesn't care about the value.
I'm sorry, I got completely distracted by my man being absolutely jacked in in rib. Let's rewind that back a little bit.
No, it was just like, yeah, you aren't racist and you haven't done anything racist, but you like someone who's racist. And again, I'm not going to be on here calling Trump racist. That's not what I'm doing. But this is the scenario, and these are the beliefs. So yeah, you know what? And this is the one thing that I said. I said when you look at this, don't quote me on this number, but 77 million or so people who voted for Trump. Do you believe that they none of them are good people? Do you believe that none of them are better people, more virtuous than the, I don't know, 60 million or so who voted for Kamala?
Yeah, good point.
That to me, you start there, and then if you think, oh wait, that doesn't seem right,
Mm,
then okay, maybe they don't have the knowledge, they don't have all the information.
mm,
Maybe they don't know everything. And then, this person we went through this experiment, this thought experiment, and he said, okay, if I can get them in the room, if I can get them all in the room and explain the case for why Trump is a terrible person, then I could flip a certain amount of them. And I was like, okay, let's say you can. You're not flipping all of them, let's be honest, right? You're probably going to get a small fraction, perhaps.
Mm.
And then from there, do you think the rest of those people are not good people? And the thing is, what I boil it down to is people have certain values. I think a lot of people that voted for Trump are people that and there's probably there's all obviously some terrible people, but same with on the Kamala side too, right? I'm sure there are terrible people that voted for Kamala as well. But the good people that voted for Trump, I bet a large percentage of them are thinking, I want the best United States for my kids, for my brothers, sisters, and for all of my loved ones, my friends, and everyone I care about. And I truly believe that this person will put us in the best situation for everyone I care about. And it could be even so virtuous as it's not even about me. It's about my children and them being able to be in, or it's about my siblings, or it's about my
Mm.
friends, right? It's about creating a country, an economy that is going to be the most prosperous for all of the people that I love. And yes, maybe I don't like this because I've had some conversations with some Trump supporters. We don't like him. We don't think he's a good person. But it comes down to what will put my family in the best situation. So to me, of course, everyone has their own beliefs, but to me that at its core is not unreasonable to me. If that's
Mm.
truly what you believe, it's not unreasonable to me. But that's perhaps
Mm.
me being more of a moderate, and the person I was talking to is more of a radical. A radical kind of has a bad connotation, but maybe more of a strong liberal, and I'm moderate. So that could be why we have this difference of opinion.
You have to respect that. I agree. It's respectable to have that, to, to come to that conclusion based on that. Respectable. And it seems like what we try to do in our heads is, let's say Trump has 10 values. We are most likely going to say, which one of my values is the most important, and which one of Trump's one value do I resonate with the most? And to us, right, because we limit our own worlds to what is important to us, we're gonna say, I can connect this dot to Trump's this dot, and therefore the mind just blocks out everything. Like you don't even, yeah, it's not great, but I feel a connection because this is what's most important to me, and this is what I think is most important to this guy. And you draw that line, and it's true that maybe you don't even take into consideration the nine other aspects that you don't resonate as well, but because to you this one is the most important, that you make the decision based on that. And that kind of goes back to the circle, maybe, you know, maybe this is if I view my life in this circle, and I think Trump is prioritizing that circle, I'm gonna, and that's, yeah, it's reasonable. It's completely reasonable to make that decision based on that.
All right, folks. Well, hey, this is a monumental podcast episode because we are now, No Downside Podcast is now a part of the 10% of podcasts who have gone past 3 episodes. So thank you all.
Incredible. Thank you to our viewers. Couldn't do this without. Really.
Cheers.
All right, OD. Until next time.